So I'm grateful to be here amongst all of you today, and as I mentioned, I'll speak on the topic of how to get past our past. So 4 reflections on this, and I'll speak it using an acronym PAST. So P-A-S-T. Now what do we exactly mean when we want to get past our past? I'll take a couple of physical examples. Say we travel from one country to another. If you come from America to Australia, we have a jet lag. So our body and our biological cycle perform according to American time, whereas we are in Australian time. And then our body needs to adjust. Otherwise, we stay biologically in the past while physically we are here. It doesn't work properly. So similarly, what can happen at a physical level also happens to us at a psychological or emotional level. All of us, when we go through life's journey, at that time, we get certain experiences which cause certain impressions on us. And those impressions can be of 2 kinds. One is good or positive, and the other is bad or negative. So we all may go through some grief, some heartbreak, some loss, and some victimization, some injustice, and all this impresses itself on our mind. And then it becomes like a horror story that keeps replaying. Normally, if we are watching a movie and if we find some scene that is too ghastly, too explicit, too distasteful for us, we will just fast forward it. But with respect to our mind, when it starts displaying some distressing scenes, there is practically no button to fast forward it. Leave alone fast forward it, the mind keeps replaying it. Now, why did he do like that? How could she have spoken like that? Why did this have to happen? And life can victimize us in many different ways. So when this past keeps coming back to us, this happened, and that can prevent us from moving forwards in our life. So the negative traumatic experiences from our past can hold us back. They prevent us from experiencing life in the present, and they prevent us from developing our potential for the future. The other aspect is, from the past, we may get some cravings, some experiences which might have been good or enjoyable in a superficial way, and they keep coming back to us. So for example, if somebody becomes an addict of something, then for them, if they become sober, still their past keeps coming back to them. They keep having that desire again and again. Oscar Wilde is ascribed to have said that giving up smoking is the easiest thing in the world. I have done it over 100 times. So I gave it up, but it didn't give me up. So sometimes our past cravings, which we now understand are unhealthy, they keep coming to us. So in this sense, our past can haunt us. Just like some people in some movies are shown to be haunted by a ghost. They don't want, but that ghost comes and makes them behave in weird ways, makes them go through all kinds of terrible emotions. So similarly, our past keeps coming back on us. And in a sense, the further we grow in life, the bigger becomes our past. And although we always have a life ahead of us, but unless we process the past properly, the past can either become a burden which crushes us, or it can become a part of the wisdom that empowers us. In one sense, the past is like a resource, but if I'm carrying a suitcase, and if I'm traveling and carrying a suitcase, and that contains stuff which I just don't know how to use, but I'm told to carry it, then it will simply be a burden. But if that contains stuff which I need and I do use, then that is an asset for me. So the past is like a psychological baggage that all of us have. Now we cannot get rid of it, but we can process it so that it doesn't burden us that much. So I was at a mental health care hospital in New Jersey, and I was speaking to the mental health care providers over there. And there they were telling me that one of the biggest problems for people who develop mental health care issues is that they feel life has treated them unfairly. That something terrible happened to them, it shouldn't have happened, and they're just not able to process it. And because of that, they become so traumatized that they can't move forwards. And what is required for them to move ahead in life is to discover some purpose for life. That's I was going to talk about acronym PAST, P-A-S-T. So P is purpose. Every one of us has some purpose behind whatever we do. So when we go home and say buy food or cook food and eat it, the purpose is to satisfy our hunger. When we feel tired, we sleep. The purpose is to rejuvenate ourselves. So at one level, for us, short-term bodily purposes are something which we inevitably pursue. But we human beings need some higher purpose. In fact, purpose is as deep a need for the human beings as is, say, food or water or even air. The lack of purpose may not kill a person physically, but it kills a person's morale, and eventually it kills people. So one of the most well-known psychology books, probably the last century, was Man's Search for Meaning by Dr. Viktor Frankel. He was a Jewish psychiatrist who was caught in the Nazi death camps, and he himself suffered as well as saw others suffer unbearable sufferings, atrocities, tortures, dehumanizing indignities were imposed on people. And over the period of years when he was there, he observed his psychiatric brain, a psychiatrist's vision, which is trained. He saw that the people who survived were not necessarily the people who were the strongest or the fittest. The idea at that time was the evolution theory was being applied to all walks of life. And there was a now outdated idea called social Darwinism, which held that among the human races also, there are some races are fitter than others. In fact, Hitler had that idea that Jews are the most unfit race, and nature is going to eliminate them, but we will help nature along the way. That was his perverted idea. But anyway, among those people who were in the Holocaust, he found that those who survived were not necessarily the strongest or the fittest, but those who had a purpose for living. That purpose, maybe there was one person who was a scientist and he had written some paper which is a cure for a disease, and that paper was taken away from him, but before it was taken away, he memorized the whole thing. And then he lived on because he felt, I have to live and I want to publicize this knowledge. So a purpose, so that there, based on his observation, he said that he concluded that we need a purpose as much as we need the physical needs of life. And when we lack purpose, it is not that we can ever live without purpose. It is just that when we lack purpose, we fall for or we slave for petty purposes that our mind creates. So for example, people may spend hours and hours, say kids, they may, if they live in comfortable homes where their parents have provided for them financially, they may have no worry about their career or their future financial security. They spend hours and hours, days and weeks and months just surfing the net and playing video games, and that becomes their purpose. It's a trivial purpose, but that's the purpose. So all of us need a purpose, but the key is to find a purpose that is bigger than our problems. All of us have purpose in life, but then that purpose is, when that purpose is challenged by problems, at that time we may give up that purpose. So if our problems appear to be bigger than our purpose, then we will become purposeless. The student wants to say get a degree, and that's the purpose with which they come to the uni. But then they feel, oh, the studies are so difficult, I can't do it. And they just quit. Now, in general, one of the surest ways for people to deal with depression. Depression can be a clinical disorder where medication may be required, but more often than not, depression is caused when we are too caught inside ourselves. So, one of the easiest ways to deal with depression, it's not easy for the person who is depressed, but is to just get out of oneself. Get out and do something for someone. In India, there was a depression center, and these people are so depressed constantly. So they arrange for all the subjects in all the patients being treated in the depression center to go to the slums and offer food, free food to the people over there. Initially, none of them was ready to go. But once they went there, hey, I can do something. I can bring a smile on someone's face. And that itself helped them to come out of the depression. So we all need a purpose in our life. Say I'll give another example, simple example of purpose and getting out of our past, getting past our past. Suppose we are driving and we get lost. Somehow we will take one wrong turn, two wrong turns, and we get lost. Now, actually it's annoying to be lost. But if we were driving for fun, then okay, I'm lost, it doesn't matter so much. We'll just explore, I'll find a way later. But, so I made a past mistake in taking a wrong turn. But if I have a purpose, I have to get for this meeting in time. Sometimes we may take a wrong turn and say, why did I take that wrong turn? Why did I take that wrong turn? Well, the wrong turn is already taken. But if I have to get for a meeting in time, okay, I'll find out what is the right turn I can take. And then we'll take the right turn and move on. So, a purpose is what helps us to move on no matter what the past has given us. And most often when we start feeling that the past has wronged us, that we have been treated unfairly by life, what happens at that time is not just the magnitude of what unfair thing has happened. It is that we have lost the purpose for our life. We become expert at justifying how life has treated us unfairly. Expert at blaming our situations, blaming our past. And this disempowers us. So one of the defining characteristics of a purpose is that it is a driving force within us. It is not dependent on our situation. And I'll talk about what is a worthwhile purpose for life in a later acronym. But purpose is something which comes from within us. And in that sense, purpose is different from a goal. A goal is, okay, I want to achieve this, I want to achieve that. I want to buy a new car. I want to explore a new relationship. I want to get this degree. I want to earn more money. These are all goals. But purpose is something much deeper. A goal is like a destination. A purpose is like a direction. A purpose is a direction. So if I'm going in the north is always going to be ahead of me. It's not going to end. So the purpose which is deep within us, that is like a direction. This is the direction which I want to go. So that purpose may be, suppose somebody has some artistic talent and they decide that I want to do art. Somebody has a writing talent. They want to write. Now to become a published author, to become a popular author, to become a best-selling author, to earn a lot of money, these are all goals. These goals sometimes we may achieve, sometimes we may not achieve. But the purpose is, I want to write. So goal is not in our hands. We may or may not achieve it. But purpose is in our hands. Now here the question may come, okay, if the goal is not achieved, then what is the purpose of purpose? Isn't it? Yeah, if I study, if I write and nobody reads my books, if I write and I don't earn any money, what is the purpose of purpose? Yeah, that it's not that the goals are unimportant. The goals are important in life, but they are not all important. When we are goal driven, we are dependent on externals, which are not in our control. When we are purpose driven, we are driven from within. And if, based on our understanding of our talents, our interests, our resources, when we come up with a purpose that is important for us, then that purpose is what drives us. And we might get to certain goals, we might not get to certain goals. So if I decide, I am going to be a more loving person. If I decide I want to be in a loving relationship with someone, I want to have a partner, I want to have someone. Now, a loving relationship is a goal. But to become a loving person is a purpose. So whether the other person loves me or not, whether the other person reciprocates or not, that is not in my control. But if I act true to my values, if I live according to my purpose, my life will be richer. Of course, if the other person reciprocates, it will be richer still. But living according to purpose gives us a sense of control over our life. It gives us something which can keep us moving in life. I'll come back to purpose when I talk about S, that is spirituality, where how spirituality helps us to give us a purpose. But before we go to that, the A part is acceptance. Now, acceptance means that we have to accept where we are right now. Like the car example I gave earlier, if somebody has gone on a wrong track and they keep beating themselves, why did I take a wrong track? Why did I take a wrong track? Why did I take a wrong track? Okay, you've taken a wrong track. Now, take the right track and move. So all of us, we have certain expectations in life. Whether it was about our career, about our looks, about our partners, about our financial fortune or whatever. We have certain expectations in life. And these expectations can stimulate us, they can inspire us to work hard. But sometimes, life doesn't work out as we expected. Not sometimes, most of the times we can say. Now, at that time, if we can't accept the reality, then this is life, this is the expectation. And we are consumed by dealing with the expectations that have not been fulfilled, then dealing with the life as it is. I'll give 2 examples to illustrate this. Suppose a person is trained to row a boat, and then they've got their friends to watch them, and they got a boat, they got row and they're expertly rowing. As they get into the sea, they're rowing, at that time, suddenly a strong wave comes and they're toppled over. Now there is no boat, there are no oars. If they keep still rowing, if they still keep rowing, they'll simply drown. now, okay, you had a plan to row. The expectation was I'll row and I'll show my skills. But we have to deal with reality as it is. Now when there is no boat and there are no oars, rowing is useless. It will be suicidal. At that time we have to swim and get out of the water. So at that time trying to row is not only a waste of energy, it is actually self-destructive. So now the person is not in the mortal, they know to swim, they're not in mortal danger. They can come out of the water. But in the mind, if they keep dealing with their dream, their expectation, they can't deal with the reality. And then that saps their energy. So similarly for us, we may have had a certain expectation of how my life should turn out. Oh, this should happen, this should happen, this should happen. And it's not happened like that. Okay, but what is the reality? The reality is, sometimes life just throws such a curved ball that everything changes in life. So then we have to accept the situation and deal with that situation. So now accepting the situation does not mean approving the situation. Accepting the situation does not mean accepting defeat. Accepting the situation doesn't mean saying that what has happened is not bad. Accepting simply means we deal with the reality as it is. Now, if it is a bad thing that if somebody has cheated us, if somebody has betrayed us, then accepting doesn't mean we are going to let them go scot-free. Accepting simply means we are not going to continue dealing with our expectation and the frustration of that expectation. I'll give another example to illustrate this difference. Suppose you want to build a new house. And then you decide that you will have some agent, now whom you will pay, and you tell them that they'll build the house. And then you start paying the agent regularly, and they say, can I see how the house is constructed? No, wait. When the house is constructed, I'll show you. And then the agent keeps asking for more money. And the agent doesn't allow you to go and see the house itself. And then eventually say, no, I want to see the house. No, it will be done. I just need more money now. And if you go and see the house, there is nothing over there. The agent has simply taken the money and is fleecing you. If such a thing happens, what would you do? What would we do? Cry? Okay, cry is possible. What after that? Sorry?
Kill him.
I think there are two extreme reactions. They say don't be passive, don't be aggressive. So don't be passive, don't be aggressive, be assertive. So what would be assertive way to act in this situation?
Get a lawyer.
Get a lawyer. At the very least, fire them. I don't want to work with you anymore. Fire the agent. So the house is here, we are here. The agent is meant to help us construct the house. But if we are paying the agent and agent is not helping to construct the house, get the agent out of the way. We can get the money back, that's later, but at least get the agent out of the way. So that agent is simply acting as a middleman who is not letting anything move forward. So this metaphor I'm using to say that reality is like the house we are building. And the agent is like our expectation. Our expectations are meant to help us to change the reality, to manifest a positive reality. But sometimes when things go so wrong, at that time we are caught in dealing with the expectation and the reality is left on the side. Now why is it not happening like this? Why is this happening like this? Why is this happening like this? So all our emotional energy is going in dealing with the middleman of expectation. And our capacity to change the reality is completely squandered. So it's natural and human to have expectations. And if our expectations are fulfilled, wonderful, celebrate. But if our expectations are frustrated, we need to recalibrate. Okay, now this is not happening. This is the reality. So acceptance is actually empowering, because it saves our energy from being dissipated on the frustration of on the fact that our expectations have been frustrated. So we might have had a particular vision of how our life was going to be. Might have an expectation from a partner, expectation from our own body and our physical health, expectation from our career, and sometimes these don't work out. So then you have to accept, okay, this is where I am at right now. Once we accept, get the middleman of expectation out of the way, we'll find that we do have power to deal with the reality. We do have power to affect the reality. The reality may be unpalatable, but at least we are negotiating with the reality. We are acting on the reality. Otherwise, we are caught in the mind and we are just dealing with the phantom of expectation and not doing anything at all practically. The Bhagavad Gita is an ancient yoga text which is a guidebook for living. And there it says that if we can learn to live without attachment to expectations, then we can live much more effectively. It is not saying we cannot have expectations. It is just that we avoid attachment to expectations. And many times in our life, it is the expectation that keeps us from acting on the reality. It is the frustration of the expectation that consumes our energy, and it prevents us from acting on the reality. There's another ancient text called the Mahabharata. It says that lamentation about the past, it says lamentation achieves nothing except to sap the energy of the lamenter. Okay, this happened, why did this happen? It just saps our energy. So basically, purpose is what directs our vision towards the future. And acceptance is what helps us to understand where we are. So going back to the driving metaphor, if I'm lost, my purpose reminds me, this is where I wanted to go. Acceptance means, okay, this is where I am right now. And then I can map a journey forward. This brings us to third point, spirituality. Now, spirituality is not just something which makes us feel good. Oh, I'm spiritual, I feel good. Yes, there is that aspect to it definitely. But spirituality is not just a state of the mind. Spirituality is a level of reality. Spirituality is not just a state of the mind. Oh, I'm feeling spiritual, I'm feeling peaceful, I'm feeling joyful. Yes, those feelings do come when we are spiritual. But spirituality is also a level of reality. Level of reality means that the Gita, which I quoted earlier, the yoga text, it explains that our present existence is three-dimensional. Body, mind and soul. The body is like the hardware of a computer. The mind is like the software. And the soul is the user. So to give another metaphor to illustrate this, is that the mind is like the integrator of the inputs coming from the outer world. So you are seeing with the eyes, you are hearing with the ears, maybe you are feeling the cool environment on your skin. Some of you are feeling the fragrance of the setting. So all these inputs are coming in from the various senses, and they are integrated and put together on a screen. And that screen is the mind. So let's do a simple thought experiment to illustrate what I mean by the mind. So wherever you are, you can just sit comfortably, and you can close your eyes, And after closing your eyes, you can take with me 3 deep breaths. 1, 2, 3. Now, with your eyes closed, try to look in front of you and notice what you see. Obviously, with your eyes closed, you can't see whatever is physically in front of you. But it is as if there is some kind of screen inside you, and on that screen, there are various images that may keep appearing and disappearing. You may see this room, you may see your home, you may see your car, you may see a loved one, you may see various images coming and going, or you may see just a dull haze of colors. But whatever you see it on an inner screen. Now, while you are noticing that inner screen, try to take a step back and look at the seer of that screen. Try to take a step back and notice who is it that is looking at that screen. Try once again. There is a screen on which you see various things, but who is it that is looking at that screen? No matter how many times you try to step back, the inner seer steps back with you. What we are looking for is what we are looking with. You are that inner seer. You are the soul, the inner seer. And the inner screen is your mind. You can take one deep breath and then you can open your eyes. Thank you. So, right now when you're looking at me, say, I am a part of your outer scene. So when our proper perception happens, at that time the outer scene, the inner screen and the inner seer, all three are in one line. Now suddenly, if you remember, hey, when I came here, did I lock my home? Or did I forget the key? Immediately thoughts, oh, where is the key? Is it here? Is it there? And then suddenly a movie starts on your inner screen. Is it here? Is it there? Is it there? Is it there? And then if I speak something, you may not even notice what I spoke. Sometimes, in a class, if sometimes a joke is spoken, and many times people turn, hey, what was the joke? What was the joke? Because what happened was, they were physically there, but something else was going on their inner screen. So, hey, then what happens? We are watching a movie on that inner screen, but then we find everyone laughing here. We think, oh, this is more enjoyable. Let me find out what it is. So you have to come back. So basically, the inner screen is the mind. And the inner screen is where the impressions of the past replay. And when they replay, that's how they catch us. So spirituality helps, as I said, spirituality is not just a state of the mind. It is a level of reality. So many people think being spiritual means if nice images start coming on my inner screen. If I start feeling good, if I start feeling peaceful, if I close my eyes and I get good thoughts, then I'm being spiritual. Yes, that could be, but that alone is not spirituality. Spirituality means that beyond whatever is coming on our inner screen, the seer of that screen is the spiritual you and the spiritual me. That is the soul. So to the extent we understand that I am not my emotions, I am the experiencer of my emotions. And not only am I the experiencer of my emotions, I can also be the observer of my emotions. I can be the selector of my emotions. and I can choose not to select some emotions. Say if we have an inner screen like a TV, and say while we are watching something on the internet, something else pops up. When something else pops up, we can choose whether to click on it or not click on it. So we all have this capacity innately to select our emotions. So I was doing a seminar in UK on anger management, and there was one person who said, I just can't control my anger. I just grow wild. I asked him, okay, so I shout at people, I become physical, I just can't control my anger, okay. So I asked him that, do you get angry when you are at work? He said, yes. So do you shout at your boss? He says, no, how can I shout at my boss? I shout at my boss, my boss will fire me. So then I said, that means that there, you know you are getting angry. So what is happening? He was getting angry with his family at home, but not at the boss at office. So the anger is the emotion that is coming. But, so this is not the time to get angry. So here, it may be repression. That may not be the healthiest way to deal with the emotion. But I'm just giving this as an example. All of us, we have experiences when we feel certain emotions, but we choose not to act on those emotions. So this indicates that we are not those emotions. We are different from those emotions, and we have the capacity to choose whether we act on the emotion or we don't act on the emotion. Now, how is this relevant for getting past our past? If we understand that I am the inner seer, I am not the inner screen, then on the inner screen, certain negative emotions may come. Oh, this happened, that's why you will never be able to do anything in life. So we start doing something positive, and then something says, see, you made a mess of so many things in your life, this is also going to be a mess. We start exploring some new relationship, exploring some new options, doing something new in our life, nothing has worked, this is also not going to work. Now when this sort of thoughts start coming, if we understand that this is actually not who I am, this is simply something that is appearing on my inner screen, and I can choose whether to focus on it or to not focus on it. And this capacity to realize our spirituality is increased by education and meditation. When we study spiritual wisdom texts, then they give us philosophical, logical, analytical understanding of how we are different from our emotions, how we exist at a higher level of reality. And from there, we can observe and we can respond. So spirituality also means understanding that there is a higher plan to life, that there is a greater intelligence than ours that is working in our life, and that intelligence will bring good out of the bad. So okay, this bad emotion is there, but I am different from it. So to the extent we study spiritual wisdom texts such as the Bhagavad Gita, we practice meditation. There are different forms of meditation. We in our tradition practice sonic meditation, sound guided meditation. We focus on chanting of sacred mantras, and these raise our consciousness upwards so that we understand I am different. I am different from the outer scene, I am different from the inner screen. To the extent our meditation gives us this awareness, to that extent we become situated in inner security. And our past will replay. It will keep replaying in our mind. But it doesn't have to affect what we do. It's just some movie that is played inside. we notice it, okay, we move on. It doesn't have to translate into reality. So for this to take place, this can all seem very abstract. But actually, if we try to apply it in our life by spiritual practices. So at one level it's intellectual, but it's not just intellectual. Okay, I am different from this inner screen. We have to distance ourselves from the inner screen. And that distance, it increases to the extent our spirituality increases. To the extent we become more and more spiritual, we distance ourselves from the externals. And then we can move forwards. And the last T is time. Now, time is the greatest healer, it is said. But time can heal only when we allow it to heal. So sometimes in our life, we all go through bad phases. Those bad phases are just something which we have to experience. If we stay caught in those bad phases, if we overreact to them, if we replay them, if we resent them, then we stay stuck in the past. The flow of time keeps moving forwards. In the Bhakti Yoga tradition, time is also considered to be a manifestation of the divine. And just as time keeps moving forwards, the divine is leading our life forwards. And if we keep moving forwards, the past will become the past. But we have to keep ourselves open. When we focus on this principle that time is something which is my friend. Time is my friend. How is it my friend? Suppose, say, we are going in a car. And while going in the car, we see some areas which have a foul smell coming from them. Now, if, say, we had kept the car open because the nice ventilation was there, then now that foul smell is foul. But if we keep driving our car, then it will remain behind. It will stay behind. And we will move forward to another area. So time takes us all ahead from wherever we are. And if, just as physical wounds heal with time, emotional wounds also heal with time. But we need to let them heal. If, say, my hand is fractured, I am not going to use my hand to lift big weights at that time. Or if my hand was fractured, I am not going to bang my hand again and again. That is the only way to worsen it. If I just let it go, it will heal. If I let it rest, it will heal. Similarly, for us, the emotional wounds also do heal. They do heal. Unless we keep replaying them, we keep reenacting them, we keep letting ourselves get caught in them. I'll conclude with one anecdote, and then if you have any questions, we can discuss. I was just in, mentioned, I'm about 6 months a year I spend in America, 5 to 6 months, apart from traveling across. So there, I met one boy. He told me that he grew up in a foster home. So I told him what happened. And after we got to know each other a little bit, I told him, what happened? Did your parents die in an accident or something like that? He said, no, both my parents are alive. Okay. Then why were you in a foster home? He said, when I was 5, my parents separated. And when they separated, it was a very bitter separation. And both of them told me that this marriage was the biggest mistake of our lives. And they said, we just want to get over it. We want to move on in our life. And both the mother and father told the child, no, you remind me of the worst mistake of my life. And therefore, both of them abandoned the child. And despite having 2 parents, he became a ward of the state. Now here, the parents may say, I want to go past my past. But this is not the way to go past your past. We have to re-envision the past. It's not that the child can be seen as, the child is not a product of that mistake. The child is an individual being who has his own personality, his own life, his own emotions. And the child's life is separate from whatever the dynamics may be among them. So when we, in an unhealthy way, want to get past our past, we just dump our past. But then, that doesn't work. The parents will probably be, sooner or later, they will feel guilty of what they did to their child. And even if they don't feel guilty, they are severely damaged that child. But this boy, when he got introduced to spirituality, at that time, in the Bhakti tradition, we understand that all of us are conscious beings, we are souls, and there is a supreme soul. And that supreme soul is known by different names in different traditions. We know him by the name Krishna. And he is considered to be the source of all love. Now, all the love that we get from anyone in this world, that is ultimately the love of Krishna coming to us through them. When a mother has a child and she offers that child her breast milk, that is one of the most intimate acts of love. And yet, if we analyze, the mother doesn't do anything special to produce milk to feed the child. The same higher arrangement that sent a child through the mother's womb into the world also arranged for milk in the mother's breast to feed the child. So yes, the milk that the mother offers is the mother's love, but it is not just the mother's love. It is also the love of the higher being who arranged for the mother to have that milk. So the bhakti vision is that whatever love we get from anyone, ultimately it is coming from the infinite. And sometimes these channels, they work wonderfully. We get affection, we get regard, we get love, but sometimes they get interrupted. But that higher channel of love, that is always open for us. So we could say we have vertical relationship with the infinite and we have horizontal relationship with others in the world. And ultimately, the best way to get past our past, wherein certain things in our horizontal relationships were frustrated, is to focus on our vertical relationship. That infinite is the source of infinite love. So this boy, he started practicing Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means we have various practices by which we channel our devotion towards the infinite and we connect with the infinite. So mantra chanting is one, and there are various other practices in that. And the result of this was, slowly, surely, as he started chanting, as he started practicing bhakti, he started feeling peaceful, started feeling strong, started feeling calm. And over a period of time, this boy, he was almost like an orphan. He was staying in a hostel. And the boy who was staying in this hostel, he became slowly like a role model for other students. And eventually, unfortunately, one of the other boys staying in the hostel, he was a teenager at that time, and his parents passed away in an accident. And when that happened, that boy was devastated. And when he was devastated, he just so traumatized, he tried to commit suicide. And when he tried to commit suicide, this boy, he was there. He talked with him, he consoled him, he helped him. And he found, because he had also practically not had his parents, so he was able to understand what this boy was going through. And when he helped him, at that time, he was himself a teenager, just coming out of teenage, just a little older than the other boy. But when he helped him and he could help him, that was the time he told me, it dawned on me why all this happened to me. And he has now become an activist, who has started a forum for caring, for offering emotional and spiritual counseling for kids who have been abandoned by parents or kids who have lost their parents. And he brings empathy into his work, deep spirituality and deep empathy into his work. And when I met him, he told me that I experienced so much fulfillment in my life. So all that frustration I had gone through, it was at that time traumatic. But now, it has given him a defining purpose for life. So when that moment will come for us, when when that insight will dawn on us, what was the purpose why all this happened? Why in the past terrible things happened to us? Sometimes that illumination will come to us maybe a few minutes after that happens, sometimes after a few months after it happens, sometimes a few years after that, sometimes it may even take a few decades. But whatever we have gone through in the past, that is not meant to be wasted. Even our pain is not to be wasted. If we are alert, if we are spiritually attuned, even our pain can be harvested for our good and for others' good. So this is how, actually speaking, now if we look back, I'll summarize and I'll talk through this example of the boy, what he did. So I talked about the acronym past, how to get past our past. And that I spoke our past impressions in the sense of negative experiences, traumas may keep replaying, and our past addictive desires may keep coming back to us. So they become like ghosts troubling us. So talked about 4 points for dealing with this past. What was P? Purpose. So you look at this boy who was abandoned by his parents, but it was through that he found a purpose. The purpose was, let me take care of others, let me help others in a similar situation. Now at that time he was himself a student, he didn't have many resources, but that purpose enabled him to move on. I talked about how goals are externals which we may or may not get. Purpose is the internal that drives us. And just as our bodies need food, air, water, similarly our heart needs purpose for living. And we have practical purposes in terms of fulfilling our bodily needs, and our life, our mind sets up various purposes, do this, do that, do that. Now we need a purpose that is bigger than our problems, and that purpose is what will empower us to move forwards in life. A purpose is like a direction. A goal is like a destination. So somebody is writing, the purpose is to write. The goal is, I want to be a published author, I want to earn money. So goals, we would like to achieve them, but we don't reduce our purpose to the achievement of goals. So by looking inwards, by understanding what is important for us, what contribution can we make in our life, if we find a purpose, that can give us a vision of the future, a direction for the future. People who are who are very depressed, they can just get out of themselves by doing something good for someone. Just feed somebody who's hungry, see a smile on their face. That gives them a sense of purpose. It brings them out of themselves. Then I talked about A was acceptance. So that means that we have certain expectations of life. So we are here, expectations are here, life is here. So when the expectations are thwarted, at that time we need to accept the reality and then deal with it. If we were planning to exhibit our rowing skills and suddenly a wave knocks us into the water where we have no oars and no boat, at that time we have to recalibrate and deal with the reality. So expectations are like the middleman who is meant to help us build our house. But if the middleman starts fleecing our money and nothing is happening on the ground, then we have to dismiss the middleman. So if it is human to have expectations, but if we become attached to the expectations, then our energy gets dissipated in dealing with the frustrated expectations, and we have no energy left for dealing with the reality. So acceptance is not approving, it is not accepting defeat, it is just accepting the reality. So this boy, if he had not accepted, okay, my parents have abandoned me, okay, but let me see what I can do with my life now. This acceptance empowers us to deal with reality as it is. Then S was spirituality. So spirituality means, I did a thought experiment. Spirituality is not just a state of the mind, it is a level of reality. So in the thought experiment, we saw that there is outer scene, inner screen, and the inner seer. So the inner seer is who we are, that is the soul. And our past keeps replaying on that inner screen. If we keep identifying with that inner screen, then we get victimized by the past. But spiritual education and spiritual meditation helps us become self-aware that I am the inner seer. And just like sometimes some pop-ups come on our phone or our computer, we note them, but we don't keep watching them, and they just go away over a period of time. Similarly, the past may replay, but if we understand I am different from it, then we can persevere. And then lastly, T was time. That time is our friend. Time is a manifestation of the divine. Time keeps helping us to move forward in life. And if we keep moving forward, then wounds that may seem devastating right now, even they will be healed. And for that, I talked about how we have horizontal relationships in this world, and we have a vertical relationship with the divine. So ultimately, whatever love we get from anyone, it is the divine offering love through that person. When a baby is loved by the mother, it is not just the mother's love, it is the divine's love coming through the mother, who has arranged for milk in the mother's breasts. So in the world, in our horizontal relationship with others, sometimes we may be frustrated, sometimes we may be devastated. But the vertical relationship is always open for us. And if we connect vertically and experience divine love through the practice of bhakti yoga, then every one of us can become not only freed from the past, but we may even discover a purpose by which our pain will no longer be a burden, our pain won't be wasted, but it will be harvested for ours and others' goods. Just as this boy who was abandoned by his parents, but eventually he found his calling in caring for abandoned and lost kids. Thank you very much. So are there any questions or comments? Yeah.
I feel like that was really good, and it was exactly what I needed to hear tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Anything specific?
Yeah, something in the workplace. Something really fresh, like, doesn't have to be the past from your childhood, it could be the past from 2 days ago.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
That's true.
So, yeah.
Anything specific from the talk you felt was what addressed you?
Yeah. The bit that stuck out for me was don't continue dealing with expectations and frustrations after a betrayal, and don't put energy into that. And then you went on to talk about moving forward, just don't replay, don't. It can be easier said than done, you know.
Yeah, but at least if it's true, it's not easy, but at least when you understand what exactly is happening, if we analyze this three part, the expectation, the reality and I, then it's at least easier to direct our energy. Otherwise we just caught inside our head.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to share anything?
I've got a question. Connecting
Yeah,
with the
please.
divine energy, is that on a different dimension, or is that still in the 3D?
Okay, connecting with the divine, is that in a different dimension or is it in the same 3D?
You said
It's-
mind, body,
Intelligence, mind, body, soul, yeah.
Soul,
Actually,
yeah.
yes, it's a good question. The soul is spiritual, the divine is also spiritual. At the same time, the divine is accessible both at the physical level as well as the material level. The divine is not physical or material, but the divine is accessible at the physical level. So, for example, when we read wisdom texts, which talk about spiritual reality. So, the book is a physical book. The text on it is physical marks, but they are channels by which our consciousness is rooted towards the spiritual. Similarly, in the Bhakti tradition, there is the concept called avatar. Avatar means incarnation or descent of the divine. So to continue this particular metaphor, we have to develop it a little bit more. I talked about how there is the inner seer, the inner screen and the outer scene. So now it is explained in the yoga tradition that the divine is next to us in every one of our hearts. The divine is our constant companion. But our consciousness is turned away. So we don't perceive that presence. It's like, say, if you have a child who is caught in watching a horror movie. And as that horror movie is going on, the child is trembling, panting, sweating, crying. And you are right now in that same room. And you know the child is safe. But as long as that child is caught in watching the horror movie, the child can't perceive you. So similarly for us, we can say that our consciousness is caught at the physical level. And it's caught at the physical and the mental level, and we can't perceive spiritual reality. So when we are caught in watching a movie, we don't even remember who we are or where we are. Our consciousness is projected completely into that. So similarly for us, although we are spiritual beings, right now our consciousness is projected into the physical and the mental levels. So now when the mother is seeing that my child is so scared, but the child is so scared that the mother comes and touches the child will think, hey, this monster has come. Hey, the child will scream. So the mother can't even touch that child. So it's so consumed by what is going on over there. So what does the mother do? So the mother actually, she has another remote. So what does is, she just changes what is going on over there. And then suddenly, child says, oh, there is a nice. The mother may have made other children and she may have made some movie of her, a video of her with other children, playing, reciprocating love, having a lot of fun. And then the child sees that, hey, what is this? This nice person. She's so nice, she's so loving, they're all having so much fun. He starts getting attracted. As he gets more and more attracted to that, then this horror movie is going on. Sometimes we have TVs with a dual screen, or sometimes you have one program going on, but another program you can get a sneak peek of what is happening. So the child sees that, hey, this is good. And the child maximizes that. Let me see this channel. And then that goes in the background. And as the child starts seeing that more and more, oh, she's so loving, she's so kind. The child starts becoming calm. The child starts becoming calmer. As the child starts becoming calmer, then when the mother comes and touches, the child says, oh, he was there, he's here also. And the child hugs the mother. So similarly for us, the divine is present with us, but we don't perceive. So therefore there are the manifestations of the divine at the physical level. So there can be, as I said, the sacred sounds, the mantras. We chant the mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So there are various sacred chants which are actually manifestations of the divine. In fact, as I said, when the divine descends, at that time the divine performs various sacred activities which are also like the movie being played. So when we hear about those activities, when we read about them, then our consciousness gets diverted. But for us, practically, there is a higher dimension. So it's not out. The 3D, when we talk about, often we think of it as length, breadth, width, but that's not our space-time at the most. That's what physics talks about. this 3D is somewhat different. This is body, mind and soul. And at the spiritual level, the divine is present. But the divine can be experienced through the physical, through the mental, and gradually we become spiritually awakened. And then we start experiencing the divine directly at the spiritual level. Okay. Thank you. Yeah?
One question is, the movie, generally we play that horror movie and we keep on playing it, even though we know this is a horror movie we're watching. And how do we change the channel?
Okay. Yeah. So if you're playing the horror movie, how do we change the channel? There are broadly 3 ways. One is, sometimes in extreme situations, some divine insight comes from within. That is rare, but it also happens. Like this boy, when he was helping that child, suddenly that other friend, at time he's talking, this is what I'm meant to do. So those are special moments of inspiration when some insight may come to us from within. The second, more accessible way is association. If we associate with spiritual people, it's like we are watching a movie, we are watching a horror movie, but we associate someone who is watching something very soothing and pacifying. Then, hey, this person is so peaceful, I am so troubled. So association shapes us not just externally but also internally. So even if our own minds are replaying the horror movies, it's not that they keep replaying it 24 hours a day. There are times when they just bombard us intensely. And to change things internally takes time. But changing things externally is relatively easier. You can just come in a spiritual association. Just hear some talks, associate with spiritually minded people. And that creates within us the desire to change the channel. It gives us the capacity to make that change. And then thirdly is practice. So practice means that our mind will go off. It's like the horror movie is going on and then we change the channel, but again that old channel reverts. But we take it back. It goes off here, bring it back. Goes off, bring it back. So by that process of inner discipline, gradually things change. That's because our mind is habituated to functioning in a particular way. So it's a default and it doesn't change. But we can change it consciously. By steady effort that is focused on, especially we do our spiritual practices. So if we study wisdom texts, if we chant the holy name, if we chant sacred mantras, then this is like a practice by which we are retuning, we are changing the channel. And as we keep doing it more and more, then this also creates positive impressions within us. Like I said, in the past, there have been negative impressions. But through the process of spirituality, we create positive impressions. And these positive impressions then take our thoughts toward the positive. So in time, if we keep doing practice, then gradually, by default, the horror movie won't start off, the horror channel will start off, but a healthier channel will start. Okay, thank you. So thank you very much for your participation. Thank you.